In today's class, we are going to see the important points related to Neet exam. The pathway of food. Sometimes they will ask the pathway of food in order. So it starts with the oral cavity. What is the other name for oral cavity? Buccal cavity, or you can call it as mouth. So food enters the mouth, that is the oral cavity or buccal cavity. You have teeth, tongue, and you have salivary glands which helps in mixing the food. They can ask you the three pairs of salivary glands: parotids, submandibular and sublingual. So parotid glands are present in the cheek in front of the ears. Submandibular gland, they are present in the mandible, and sublingual glands. You have pairs, parotids too on right side and left side, same way submandibular and sublingual. So these are all three pairs of salivary glands which helps in mixing the food. They secrete saliva. So saliva contains salivary amylase which helps in digestion of starch. So digestion starts, this is another important question. Digestion begins in the oral cavity or buccal cavity. From there food enters the oropharynx. Name the three parts of pharynx. You have nasopharynx, oropharynx, laryngopharynx. Okay. So oropharynx is a common pathway for both the food passage and air passage. Oropharynx is otherwise called as throat. So the food enters the oropharynx and it enters the esophagus. Epiglottis, here you have to remember one more MCQ. Epiglottis is the one which helps to prevent the entry of food into the trachea. So epiglottis is a cartilage flap, it acts as a lid. Okay, trachea and esophagus. So this lid closes the trachea and the food passes inside the esophagus. Here, this is the place of oropharynx, the throat area. So when the food enters, the epiglottis will close the tracheal passage, the pathway, so that food enters the esophagus and the epiglottis prevents the entry of food into the trachea. So food enters the oral cavity or buccal cavity, reaches the oropharynx or the throat area, then it enters the esophagus, the long muscular tube. This is the esophagus. So in esophagus you have two, esophagus is also called as food pipe. Okay, so esophagus, you have, related to esophagus you have two important questions. Is there any digestion process taking place in the esophagus? No. So inside the esophagus there is no digestion process. What is the use of esophagus then? Food just travels down. It helps in movement of the food into the stomach. So from the oral cavity it enters the stomach through the esophagus, the muscular tube. So the movement which helps the food to reach the stomach is called as peristalsis. The movement of food inside the esophagus is called as peristalsis. This is another important MCQ. Then stomach contains gastric glands. These gastric glands are present in the gastric lining of the stomach. So when the food reaches here, stomach contains lot of gastric glands. They pour all the enzymes which helps in digestive process. Then you have duodenum. This is the duodenum. So you have four parts of the stomach: the cardiac, fundus, body and pyloric region. Next, the small intestine begins. So what are the three parts of small intestine? Duodenum. So duodenum is the first part of the small intestine. Then you have jejunum, the middle portion you have jejunum, and the terminal and the last part of the small intestine is ileum. This is the highly coiled part. Okay, so name the three parts of small intestine: duodenum, jejunum and ileum. There is one more important MCQ related to duodenum is the hepatopancreatic duct opens into duodenum. Hepato means liver, pancreas. So two ducts from liver and pancreas join together to form hepatopancreatic duct which opens into the duodenum. So liver secretes bile and pancreas contains lot of pancreatic enzymes. By the bile duct and pancreatic duct both opens together into the duodenum as hepatopancreatic duct. This is guarded by sphincter of Oddi. Guarded means it acts as the valve which acts as a closing and opening mechanism. It is called a sphincter of Oddi. This is made up of muscle. Okay, sphincter means like this. So the another MCQ is hepatopancreatic duct is guarded by sphincter of Oddi. Then the second part is jejunum and third part is ileum. So next the large intestine, ascending colon. Here you have vermiform appendix. This is the small finger like projection, you have cecum. From here ascending colon means which rises up, ascending colon transverse the horizontal portion, descending which comes down, and the sigmoid colon, this is the sigmoid colon, this is the sigmoid colon, and rectum and anus. So food enters the oral cavity with the help of the salivary glands, teeth and tongue. Food gets mixed up, it enters the throat area, next it is moved into the esophagus. Inside the esophagus it passes down to the stomach through a muscular movement called peristalsis. From the stomach the food is acted upon by gastric glands which are present in the lining of the stomach. Then you have small intestine. The beginning of small intestine is first part duodenum, jejunum and ileum. Hepatopancreatic duct which has got the valve, sphincter of Oddi, opens into the duodenum. Next is the large intestine. Beginning of large intestine you have ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, rectum, and finally anus. Through the anus the waste material is excreted out.